Meiji era. It's around 1870. A woman with a special genetic makeup allows her to give birth to a unique child, a hybrid between a cursed spirit and a human. This induces fear and disgust amongst the woman's family, who ostracize her. Forced to run from her home, she seeks solace in a temple run by Jujutsu sorcerers. But little did she know that her luck had already run out. Because even though she thought she had reached safety, she was unfortunately found by the most evil sorcerer in Jujutsu history, a stain on the prestigious three big clans. Noritoshi Kamo. Kamo undertook cruel experiments on the woman in order to create a perfect hybrid, forcing her to undergo multiple terminated pregnancies, creating 9 death-painting cursed wombs. These fetuses had 3 parents, the woman, a cursed spirit, and Kamo's mixed DNA for their birth. Of these death paintings, 1, 2, and 3 were worthy of being called special grade curse objects. And thanks to cursed spirit Mahito and Kenjaku's sinister plan freeing them, they reincarnated into human bodies after being sealed for 150 years. And they were named Choso, Iso, and Keshizu. So what was the cost of this revival? 3 innocent human sacrifices. The brothers had no memory of their mother, nor did they harbor any hatred towards humans or sorcerers in general, because for the 150 years they were sealed, the only thing they knew was each other's faint presence, despite the fact that they were in a limbo of life and death. This phenomena explains why these brothers had an extremely tight-knit connection with each other after being reincarnated. Choso's curse technique allows him to sense the presence and any death flags of his brothers, which is the perfect representation of the bond these brothers shared. However, after reincarnating, the brothers had 2 paths they could take in life: living as humans or living as cursed spirits. Both look like shit options to me. Alright, I'm fine guys, I'm fine, that was a joke. But please cheer me up by hitting the notification bell and join our community, because what I'm about to explain will prove Gege Akatami's idea of playing with our very emotions. Now, even though the cursed brothers didn't hate humans or sorcerers, they chose to live as cursed spirits by joining Mahito's cause, thereby choosing an existence of death and violence. Well, you already know the karma is real if you're going up against the protagonist of a shonen series, right?
I am having a very bad day.
You're gonna die and lose it. You know? Because Iso and Keshizu both brutally died at the hands of Yuji Itadori and Nobara, having barely lived even as curses. But it was Choso who had to bear the burden of these deaths, losing 2 people who meant everything to him. In the blink of an eye, they were gone, all because a random kid thought it was righteous to do so. Beyond the love for his brothers, Choso had no other values to guide him. In fact, he had never developed a moral compass, being sealed ever since his birth. The only purpose in Choso's life was to protect the bond he had with his brothers as the eldest. And even then, he failed to do so, which is why, in his anger, he decided that he would kill Yuji Itadori to enact vengeance. It was only right that Yuji should go through the same fate. Thus, he mindlessly jumped into any scheme that would bring him closer to killing him, even if that meant taking the lives of innocent people in the Shibuya arc, all to benefit Mahito and Kenjaku. Evidently, he was a cold killing machine, even in the face of the looming threat of Satoru Gojo's presence at the station. Well, credit to him, cause his persistence came to fruition and he got the chance to go up against Yuji Itadori. And man, this was a true bloody fight. No, I mean it, literally. Cause Choso escorted my boy Yuji Itadori almost to the gates of death with his blood manipulation curse technique. My boy lost that shit. The armor didn't activate. Oh wait, it did later on. However, with the power of plot armor and memory manipulation, Yuji Itadori was saved from death. This is because Choso has a really weird flashback in which he sees himself and Yuji with his already deceased brothers happily out on a picnic. More precisely, a memory of an event that never happened was born inside of Choso's mind. What's even more is that in this memory, Yuji Itadori goes ahead and calls Choso, I'm gonna say it, Oni-san.
I'm getting played right now, aren't I?
Flamingo.
I'm getting played like some kind of chump.
Understandably, all this information overload totally messes up Choso's sense of right and wrong. He goes into a severe existential... I can't say, I'm having one right now myself because I can't pronounce this word.
Existential crisis.
So right from the moment they were given a chance at life, Choso had fiercely chosen an easy path that would serve them the best. And that was to live as curses rather than choosing the human life like Yuji Itadori. This choice was made out of brotherly love because whilst he himself had no problems, Iso and Kejisu would have faced harsh rejection from human society if they tried to live as them, thanks to, you know, their uncanny appearance. Clearly, this is a social commentary from Akutami because even our world is plagued with prejudices against people with different appearances. They brutally discriminate in treating others based on how they appear, and this even extends to the stigma against other races. Choso's brothers appearing more like cursed spirits would have raised some unprecedented hurdles, like fitting into the sorcerer's side when the old higher-ups and clans are so biased even towards their own kind. This classism has been running in the Jujutsu society for thousands of years and has cemented its way so that anyone who opposes it instantly becomes an enemy. Not even the strongest sorcerer, and I'm gonna say it, Satoru freaking Gojo himself couldn't escape being labeled as a criminal. So some nobodies like Choso and his crusty looking brother would go through severe disdain. It links back to how Suguru Geto found two small sorcerer girls in a village, but they were trapped and beat up like animals for being different than others. Instead of navigating these complex situations and the hardships Iso and Kejisu would go through, it was easier to pick the choice that held no judgments. They could live the way they wanted to, even if that meant killing others, because they were, after all, curses in human bodies. But their dual nature should have made them question their ways more than other cursed spirits. Their mother was human, and for what it was worth, Noritoshi Kamo, or Kenjaku disguised as him, was also human, which makes these brothers 2 parts human and only 1 part curse. While it was too late for Isu and Kejisu, Choso's confrontation with the reality of his choices was not easy on him. In a frustrating way, he had worked in the favor of his cruel father, because even though he did not have a choice in being born, he did get one when he got a chance at life. This is definitely the philosophy behind stopping the cycle of generational trauma. It is how you choose to live as your own person without leaning into your origins. The importance of choices is always emphasized in Jujutsu Kaisen. Hakari's character has hammered this down, as Jujutsu itself is a gamble, and every choice you make has severe consequences. For example, Suguru Geto's single choice of seeing non-sorcerers as worthy to be protected to the juxtaposed position of they are monkeys to be used can make you see the whole world in an opposite light. And with that choice, he had decided to do terrible things even though they made him unhappy, because he did care for the Jujutsu school and his best friend friend Satoru Gojo. That's right, the same best friend who chose an entirely different path of making a change in Jujutsu society and started teaching young minds free of discrimination against each other. By the end of Jujutsu Kaisen 0, we can see how starkly different the outcomes of Gojo and Geto's choices were. Gojo knew that his path was harsh and in all likelihood a gamble. He could have destroyed every higher up of Jujutsu society very easily, but it would be ineffective, as he would be taken as a god amongst men, the sole evil sorcerer that bestowed his ideological views upon others through pure tyranny, becoming the very thing he swore to destroy. Instead, Gojo chooses to do it via selfless means that brings society to his level through spontaneous solidarity, which is mutual compassion between the people to face an impending crisis as a group. Therefore, Gojo made a difficult choice. In many ways, Yuki also had the same goal as Suguru Geto, but she took on the harder choice of going about it. They both wanted a world where sorcerers wouldn't die by nipping the bud at its root. However, Yuki decided to research deeply into every possibility of curse energy, whether to break free from it or optimize it, rather than just, eradicating the non-sorcerer population and doing a genocide and being extremely evil. I'm just saying. So unlike us, who have to choose what university to go to, which will, only affect our own personal lives, in comparison, the choices and gambles in the Jujutsu world are much more crucial because this world is full of endless misery all around. Principal Yaga harshly makes Yuji Itadori face the reality that Jujutsu sorcerers die with regrets. If Itadori's purpose of living was only to fulfill his grandfather's will, then he was better off wallowing in grief on his own, because had Yuji died in his quest, he would have blamed his grandfather. So the way anybody in the Jujutsu world lives is crucial, and Choso and his brothers took the wrong path. However, since this choice was rooted in love, Choso got another chance at living thanks to Yuji Itadori. Ever since he came to know about his relationship with his younger brother Yuji, he took on the role of a dutiful elder brother once again. After losing it all and facing rock bottom, he had another purpose in life, which was Yuji, even though his younger brother hadn't accepted Choso yet. This sense of purpose was important to Choso, and he strove to dedicate whatever his life was to protecting and fighting for his brother, and he would do that even if that meant dying, as we saw in chapter 208. This was his way of righting the wrongs he had done, living as a curse. He had lived a worthless blip of a life, but despite thinking he didn't deserve to live, he actually did. That's because the moment he had accepted the burden of his mistakes and the lives he had taken, Choso had become more human than he thought. The idea of his brothers being too weak to suffer as humans was wrong. All he had to do was to believe in them and stand by them in their struggles. But he realized it too late when he saw Yuji Itadori trying his best even when he was suffering as a human and making the harsher choices. Even though Yuji had killed his own brothers by mistake, he relented in sorrow despite not knowing the truth yet, because being human means having empathy for others, which affects our choices. Had Yuji Itadori known he was killing his own brothers, he would never have believed in the black and white morality he was enforcing at that point of time. The author of Jujutsu Kaisen has painted it himself and is stating to us in interviews that the world is painted grey, and Yuji Itadori realizes this. For instance, when he accepts that he is just like Mahito, hunting him like a wolf, and ends his nemesis's life. As a result, Choso is similar to Yuji in many ways, who is struggling with realizing his identity. In fact, even Satoru Gojo notes that Yuji accepted his death sentence way too easily, just like Choso. Similarly, Choso is conflicted with himself, which is why living on is a harder choice than dying for a so-called noble cause that Yuji also focused his life on. But this is exactly the situation Yuji faced in the the Shibuya arc when Toda tells him that looking for meaning or logic in death can at times defile the memories of those we've lost. These words helped Yuji see the path to continue fighting and facing the sins of Sukuna head first, instead of, running away from them. This realization put him on a new path of redemption for his choice of swallowing Sukuna's fingers whilst learning to process his guilt and prove he's a proper sorcerer. In the same way, Yuki and Tengen allow Choso another chance at life, a rebirth, telling Choso to continue living as a human next to his brother this time round. Choso felt he had abandoned Yuji Itadori, but throwing his life away for no reason was deliberately leaving his brother to fend for himself. But the truth is, Yuji needs someone like Choso right now, because only them two alone can understand the weight that they are carrying together. In a poetic way, helping Yuji is the way for Choso to be freed from his cursed life and be reborn as a human this time round. And since Itadori is Gojo's student and follows his philosophy, rather than discriminating against Choso and dredging up the past, he will understand the reasons behind Choso's actions to some extent. Even he himself had felt terrible about killing Iso and Keshizu. We saw Yuji bid an emotional goodbye to Choso before leaving for the culling games, so he has already accepted his new brother. Yuji thinks of himself as a cog and the sinner for Sukuna's massacre, but he is much more than that. After Nanomi's death and Gojo's sealing, Yuji has lost all dependable adult figures in his life. Even though the big idea of Jujutsu Kaisen is to show how the new generation of sorcerers can make incredible changes, people like Yuji still need some guidance to find the correct path, much like how monks in Buddhism guide other people to enlightenment. Choso fulfills this role just as Gojo was this figure to Child Megami. They gave purpose to each other. Now, to enjoy more peak fiction, learn about Yuji Itadori's mother and how he became half cursed spirit and half human in the first place. Watch the video on your screen right now.